Hi everybody, thank you so much for being here. I'll just get through this intro very quickly. I'm Olivia, welcome back to Dressing the Diva. Please do like and subscribe, especially if you're, like me, a creative. We all need to stick together in these times, and hit the notification bell as well. I would really appreciate it. So it appears that finally, after several months of absolute silence, the UK government has decided to give a £1.7 billion stimulus package to the arts. This sounds really great on the surface, and it is, because it's far better than the £0 that we were being offered before, but we should still perhaps be cautious. Nobody has said exactly how all of this money is going to be shared out, and we know that it's supposed to cover all museums, theatres, opera houses, concert halls, etc. And it's in the form of loans and grants. Loans. Now, what some people don't fully understand about the arts industry in the UK is that, in fact, it generally receives very little in terms of government funding, and it usually has to rely almost fully on ticket sales. So whereas opera houses in Germany, I mean, the opera system is just excellent in that country, they're usually funded by the government between 70 to 80%. So, you know, you can have a lot more performances, you can get by on not every night being full. Whereas in the UK, performance venues receive a maximum of about 20% government funding, and that's the lucky ones, the most established venues, and all the rest has to rely on ticket sales. I actually read today that the Royal Opera House, so basically the biggest classical music venue in the UK, you could argue, has to have 95% full house to break even. So it just gives you an idea of how heavily they had to rely on ticket sales. Then everything gets closed with COVID-19, understandably so. And in fact, for a long time in the UK, once again, a way in which the Conservative government dealt with this worse than most other European countries is to just advise people to stay away from theatres, advise the theatre managers to close, not actually give a government order that everything had to close so that they could claim quickly on their insurance. No. Which meant that people obviously did stay away, and they were making almost nothing in ticket revenue until, of course, the official order eventually had to come through to close, because literally everything closed. Now in Germany, I think that Frau Merkel announced a huge cash injection almost immediately for the arts when all the performances had to be cancelled and when everything shut down, whereas the UK did not take this initiative. And so basically now the problem is that this cash injection, for some companies, it comes as too little, too late. Even some of the UK's biggest venues, such as the Royal Opera House, the Royal Albert Hall, the South Bank Centre, have actually been worried about closure and are now desperately looking for more private sponsors, which just kind of gives you an idea of the gravity of this situation and actually how shameful it is. I mean, this has been an unprecedented time, and of course, you know, individuals are facing serious difficulties, small companies are facing serious difficulties, but what does it say about a country when 3 of its biggest performance venues that contribute a ton to the economy have been worried about closure? What does it say about the kind of help that they have been offered, i.e. none? There are smaller theatres and music venues across the country that actually have already had to close or are currently in such serious financial difficulties that this might all have come too late. And I really don't know what the UK government have been doing when it comes to the arts. And I just feel like there's a real sort of inverted snobbery towards the arts in the UK. And it's generally treated as something for liberal elites. And it's kind of implied that, oh, if we care about that in the midst of this pandemic, then that's classist. Well, let me just flip the idea around. Everybody has the right to enjoy the arts. Everybody deserves to experience and enjoy live performance, opera, ballet, orchestral concerts, whatever it might be, musical theatre, plays. We all have that right, and we all have the capacity to understand, enjoy, and be moved by that experience. So when people try to turn it into a class thing and act like only middle class or upper class people actually have the ability to enjoy these things, it just gives me the rage. And actually, I think that that is the most patronising and classist thing that you could possibly say. Plus, I would also add, never assume that all people in the arts come from upper class backgrounds. There's a difference between being upper class and just being classy. There also seems to be a misconception that the arts are more of a drain on the economy than a contributor. However, this is completely incorrect. The arts actually contributes more to the economy than, for example, sports. So the way that the UK government in recent years seems to have written off the arts as an unnecessary luxury, it really grinds my gears, because how many of you would have got through lockdown without any films, any TV, books, music? I don't think it would have been a very enjoyable experience, would it? And why is it seen as unreasonable or classist or greedy or unnecessary for the arts to ask for just a bit of help so that they can stay afloat during this time, when the whole reason that they now need a cash injection and need government help to stay afloat is because they've had little to no government help over all of these years of Tory government? And look, I'm not saying that we need to immediately fill up theatres back to full capacity again and act like none of this has ever happened, but doesn't it seem a bit ridiculous to you that bars are suddenly completely full, that people are literally spilling out, crowding into the streets? That's going to cause a second wave much more than a sensible, say, quarter full, half full, third full, whatever audience wearing obligatory masks. I know how much the arts and how much theatre and music contribute to just the general culture of life, especially in London, but in the UK in general, I would like to think. And I just think that it's the most disgraceful and shameful thing to let the arts in that country be run into the ground. Now, after this, you can just bet that we'll go back to almost zero arts funding, and there probably won't be a second cash injection. And I'm not too confident that we're going to be fully happy with how this money is divided, and, you know, the effect that it will eventually have. But once again, it comes back to this idea that if the arts are asking for something, that it's unreasonable and it's too much and there's not enough money. Well, let me tell you, there has been billions for this government to spend on a Brexit that has not even yet occurred and has done nothing positive for the country as a whole. Surely this pandemic provided the government with a perfect opportunity to just take a long, hard look and finally come to the conclusion that if people have to give up on weddings, if people have to give up on funerals for their loved ones, which is the most horrendous thing I can imagine, if people have to give up on projects that they've been working on for months, if not years, when is it going to be time to admit that we should give up on Brexit? It has done nothing but drain money away, sour relations, you know, nationally and internationally, and make the country, frankly, the laughingstock of the rest of the world. So guys, tell me what you think about this. If your country has done a lot more for the arts than the UK has, it has actually been mainland European countries that have given me more opportunities in the start of my career. But I do deeply care about the art scene in London, and that's where I'm from, and I hope to keep being a part of it as time goes on. And I just think that it would be the most tragic, shameful disgrace if it were to be lost because of the lack of care of this government. So let me know what you think. Are you happy with this cash injection that's now being offered? I do think it's a good thing, and I'm not saying at all that it's not in this little diatribe, but I just think that more could have and should have been done much, much sooner. And I still think that this is a bit too little too late, and that more should be done. And more could be done if the government would give up on certain ridiculous endeavours that bring nothing to anyone. This government has often claimed that the coronavirus is a great equaliser between all of us in society, and that we're all in this together, and that it's brought us closer together. Well, I would actually argue that the opposite is true. Those of us who work in the arts have often felt completely out on a limb during this whole experience. We haven't really known if and how our careers are going to survive, what's going to be possible going forward. Several thousand jobs have already been let go, and I'm not just talking about the artists, like the performers that you literally see on the stage. Do you realise how many people theatres employ? It's everybody. It's people who work in the office, front of house, in the bar, the dressers, the makeup artists. There are so many more. The arts provide so much to the life of a city. I'm going to leave some links below of ways in which we can fundraise for some houses and theatres and smaller organisations that are currently suffering. And look, no, I don't necessarily think that the poor should be funding the poor. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm just saying that perhaps we could all kind of put our heads together and think about who we could forward this information to that actually is in a position to offer a sponsorship, to offer a large donation, to perhaps collaborate with these companies on a larger scale in terms of funding in a way that could be mutually beneficial. It's a really important conversation that we all really need to have. And that is being had all over the internet. So I just kind of wanted to add my 2 cents. You could share this video with anybody who might be in a position to offer help or who might be interested, even if they themselves are not involved in the arts, who might be interested to kind of reach out an arm and collaborate in that kind of way. I will also put on in the description box below some petitions that you can sign so that hopefully we can start getting more government attention, and that hopefully in the future, if something of this magnitude occurs, that the arts are never left so vulnerable again. Also, at the next election, vote Labour. Okay, love you, bye!